We're going to dive into this discussion, and we have a couple panelists that are going to come onto the stage. I don't know if they got walkout music, but they definitely deserve it. First person we're going to bring up to the stage is legendary wide receiver turned broadcaster who has channeled his on-field tenacity into media excellence, Mr. Stephen Smith Sr. Washington Commanders defensive lineman and co-founder of the Players Company, helping athletes take control of their financial future, Mr. Sheldon Day. Hall of Fame lineman and founder of the Boselli Foundation, leveraging business and philanthropy to create lasting impact, Tony Boselli. Founder of Petrikoff & Co., which brings experiences at the intersection of finance, entertainment, and technology to transform investment opportunities. Mark Petrikoff. All right, gents, what do you think about today?
Really excited, but I think we need the crowd in it a little bit more. It's like a little...
What do you need?
Some excitement, like some round of applause.
Round of applause? Okay.
There we go.
Is that good?
That was better. That was better. We can still work on it.
You want to do one more?
Let me get one more.
I love it. You know, we're going to keep this energy at this superior level because we're talking about things that are really important to not only the investors that are in the room, but also the players that are in the room and those that are attending, looking to understand what's going on in the mindset of players. And one of the things I always think about, you know, when I was playing, you know, whether it was my first year or my last year, I always wondered about what was next. And when I see those, you know, Stephen, you know, I think about you, Sheldon, and I think Tony and Mark, you know, there's different points in your life when you think about what's next. And so I wonder, for me, it was all the time. Stephen, what about you? When was it that you thought about what was next?
I mean, I thought what was next all the time. I was a little ADD about it. And it allowed me to, every offseason, I would do different things. And my wife would say, all the hobbies I keep doing. But in those hobbies now, you know, I like to call them is those hobbies now accumulate a lot of mailbox money.
Tony, what about yourself?
I was probably the opposite. It's just kind of how I'm wired. I never thought about what's next. All I thought about was playing football. I mean, I was single-focused, and that's pluses and minuses, especially my career ended because I got hurt. All of a sudden, you wake up, you're like, uh-oh, now what? But it's been good in my business career and what I've done afterwards because I'm naturally curious, and when I get on something, I'm going to go learn and understand it and dive head first, and that's what I'm doing. And so as a player, though, and I think it helped me, you know, as a player, it was all about football, and that's all I cared about. Downside, you retire, and you're like, man, you're lost a little bit. So there was a year or so that you kind of fight through depression and all those different things, and you try to figure it out. And that's a tough journey at times.
So Tony, you never thought about it. Steve, you thought about it all the time. You had that mailbox money. And Sheldon, you're playing. So, I mean, did you think about it last week when you were in the locker room? Are you thinking about now that you're standing on the stage right now? Are you going to go home? Are you going to think about it? Or you're not going to think about it at all?
I would say I thought about it since day one. I'm a 6'1" defensive tackle, so the likelihood of me making it past year 2 was slim. So the day when I got in, I'm like, well, how can I use the shield to make sure that my life after ball is really beneficial and I can really create forever lasting change? So I've been thinking about it since day one, and that's why I started the Players Company. How can I have everybody at least have some type of avenue to really have a mindset to say, hey, I play football, I play in the National Football League, let me use this shield.
So everybody here except for Mark played football.
I played high school, but
you played high school football.
When did you think about it?
I'm still thinking about it.
But what you have done is made several sudden changes in your life. And when we think about football, it's all about sudden change. The team that is able to produce once the fumble occurs is the one that's more than likely going to be the one that wins. If there's a sack that happens, if the defense has to go back out and make a stand, it's really important. Sudden change is important. So, Mark, as you have sort of moved through your career, how did you find yourself investing in media and technology and working with so many different people?
Well, I just want to say one thing first, which is when I hear you guys speak, and it's interesting generationally, similar but a little different. If you look at today's players, Sheldon, how many years have you played?
You just finished year 9.
9, yeah, I would say 8. So it's inevitable now that kids in college aren't thinking about not so much what they're going to be doing at 30 or 40, but how they're going to take advantage of their opportunity.
Yeah.
And there's a balance between that and, Tony, the way you describe how you build a Hall of Fame career, which is completely focused. So for me, I try always to focus on what I'm doing at the moment, but I'm also thinking about how to keep my funnel in life as wide as possible until I'm certain that that funnel needs to narrow to be better and better at something. So I started my career just very quickly in a talent agency at CAA, long before they had sports. And I knew I didn't want to be an agent. I learned the business side of Hollywood, and that led me to building an investment bank, doing entertainment and media deals, and that led me to very accidentally meeting an NFL player and doing a television show with him, Gronkowski. And I met a bunch of athletes, and that led me to thinking, okay, I can apply my skill sets to a need that I see in the professional sports world, just to provide athletes with some advice and guidance around how to invest money into private deals. So it was a journey, and when they sailed from the old world to the new world 500, 800 years ago, they didn't go in a straight line. They zigzagged based on navigating with the stars. That's career for anybody. There's no scenario where you go from A to Z. So that's my best answer.
It made me think, because that's the only thing I did right as far as what's next is I was always naturally curious, and so took advantage of the relationships of being an NFL player and talking to our sponsors and digging into the business leaders and developing those relationships. And that was really super helpful. So when I did get done and started figuring out, I had built a network that I could go invest in. And those people naturally want to help guys who played in the league.
Yeah.
Because we played on TV, like they want, in some sense, they want to be that. And so you take, I'm not saying take advantage of it, but that's what business is all about, is networking, being curious, understanding it. Because I agree with Mark 100%. I would have never guessed in a million years that I'd be a president of a healthcare company. I mean, when I got in, I didn't know the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. I didn't know anything. Yeah. But I was naturally curious, and then that focus, it's helped me a lot.
You also, as players, you three know this, applies to any sport. We tell all of our clients, meet the opposing team's owner every time you go on the road. You go up and shake hands, introduce yourself, get their cell phone number, and build your network, and look how they made their money, and just expand. So curiosity to me is absolutely critical. And you can't fake it. You have to either be wired that way, or you have to model yourself after someone who was wired that way.
So 2 things I always think about is having that tool belt, right? In the tool belt, you're always adding different tools, and those are based upon the experiences that you have. But those tools in those tool belts could also be those relationships and people that you met along the way that give you great and sound advice. And so in a lot of ways, you actually have to realize that you need a tool belt in the first place, so it's a plan. Steve, how did you think about your plan as you transitioned?
Well, it's interesting that they talked about that, is because I didn't have relationships with the sponsors. I was not, that just wasn't my demeanor or my personality. I was more of a loner. And so I think that is great advice to meet the owners and do that stuff. But if you are not mentally mature to follow through with meeting those people, I think you are selling yourself short. Now that I'm older, at 45, because I've matured some.
We're all trying to mature still.
But because I've matured, I never burnt those bridges because I never really broached those conversations. And now that I can, those people who knew me then when I was 20 years old and had hair and was a fiery hothead and said whatever I felt, I never talked to them. And they were happy not to talk to me. But now that I walk into these meetings, and now that I go to these CEOs and I talk to them, they're willing to teach me, that I'm willing to learn. But then there's a mutual respect because they see that I'm willing to follow through. Yeah. And so I would say that that's the most important thing, is we can't say we're going to use the shield and fumble the bag, because then that doesn't work out. Then you all of a sudden put yourself in a position where they do say you're just another athlete who did not follow through.
Yep.
Or remove the athlete, just another person who did not follow through. Because following through doesn't, lack of follow through is not based on the sport you play. It's just based on who you are, what's going on inside of you at that moment.
It also hurts the next guy after you.
Yeah.
Several guys after you.
Well, that's the perception, isn't it? Oh,
Yes.
he's just another football player.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we have to break. The only people who can do that is us. And I think the thing of whether your personality is, and Steve's right, maybe you're not someone who's comfortable doing that as a young man. That's okay.
Yeah.
But have enough humility and enough self-awareness that, you know what, it's about building relationships. All of business is, it's built on relationships at the end of the day. And so as you build those strong relationships and have enough humility to ask the questions, when you don't act like you have all the answers, and let the people who do that, I always talk about, I always want people around me that have been at least a couple miles down the road I'm trying to go down, because they can tell me where those potholes are and all the mistakes they have.
Yeah.
And the trick is just don't act like you have all the answers. Yeah. Have some humility and ask questions and learn, and it still be a bumpy road sometimes, but you'll be okay.
I think humility is one of the things that we always have to be mindful of. And Mark, when we first talked, I think I brought up the notion of humility and how sometimes that's a sheer determining factor whether someone moves forward or whether they don't. Even if they're the best at it, if they come in there with a little bit of overconfidence, maybe they're not someone that they can work with and they can help shape and mold, because people want to have a vested interest. So while I agree with what you're saying, Steve, I think that when you fall down and you hurt yourself, or you hurt yourself, that person that lifts you up is also someone that has a vested interest in who you are. And so I think there's a little bit of a balance, right?
Yeah.
Taking advantage of the moment in time of which you have with some people that you are meeting along the way. Sometimes some of those errors help them understand how far you've grown, because they may not have known. Now, you were a little bit more vocal, so people saw that.
Correct.
But it's important for people to work together. Sheldon, I'm curious, with you, where do you sit on that maturity level?
It depends on the day. But I would say, I guess I'm more so worried about the image and the perception of people and how they feel about me, because I know in the business world, you rub one wrong person and now it spreads between all of their connections and their network and stuff like that. I was taught early on that your net worth is your net worth. So I'm always trying to build on that and make sure that I understand, hey, if I rub this person wrong, I might mess up future business and deals and things like that. So I try to appeal, but also stay true to myself and know that sometimes people aren't meant for me and things like that. So I think as an athlete, it's kind of hard to not appeal because we're in the entertainment business, but also you have to stay true to yourself.
A lot of people who are playing also think about not just building those relationships, but building portfolios. And sometimes those portfolios are different seed investments or different private equity investments that they might have. How do you all determine, Tony, we'll start with you, how did you determine what to invest in, when to invest in it? It seems to me from what you're saying, it wasn't until after you got done that you even started to look around the corner to see that there was a CEO position and a business for you to run.
Yeah. Well, I did invest. I didn't say I didn't invest. That's the problem. I think everyone will say this. You get in the locker room, everyone has a great idea. I know this dude, I got that guy, and everything else. And sometimes you fall for it, you wake up, you're like, where'd that money go?
Yeah.
And so, if I could go back and do it all over again, I'd have been very conservative as a player, because I'm a big believer, don't invest in something you don't understand. And I invested in stuff I didn't understand, and I trusted people, and part of it's because of the competitive nature we all have. Like, you want to go chase, and you got to be careful with that, because people don't always have your best interest in mind. And so the thing is I would be conservative, especially as the salaries continue to increase. You can really, if you're conservative and be smart, get around the right people, be conservative, and then when you are ready, and maybe it's when you're playing, I wasn't, other guys are, but only invest in something that you're interested in and you understand and you know the people, because you're not investing in just a business, you're investing in people. Don't ever forget that, because a business is only as good as the leadership that is running it. And I think guys miss that because there's 1,000 great ideas. And I've been in the venture world. The company I was the president of is a venture-backed company. And in the venture world, you have to understand, those big VCs are investing in 100 companies. They just want 1 or 2 to hit because of how the model works.
And it's all about the founders.
It's all about the founders. And so you got to really understand. Any VC will tell you, when they invest in a concept, yes, they want to understand what's the market, all the different things, but they're really, at the end of the day, they're investing in those founders, or those individuals that can take that idea from, a seedling and help it grow and mature to a successful business. And if you just look at the track record, most early stage companies fail. It's just reality.
They say that if you're I think it's either the first 10 or 20 employees of $1 billion business, you'll net more cash than if you are the founder of your own company. And because the likelihood that you probably fail versus jumping on board a company that is grown in significant size of the better part of the duration. So Steve, when you were playing, were you evaluating investments? Were you thinking about things? Were you getting into the locker room, someone was chirping in your ear about a different idea? Were you putting capital to work? Were you meeting people outside the stadium that you were investing with? How did you make a determination whether you wanted to invest your capital and your time and your treasure in something that was away from the game?
Well, I had the same philosophy as Tony, is if I didn't understand it, I didn't invest in it. Not because I was a genius. It was actually because I was scared. And I have 4 kids, me and my wife. And so I knew when I left the house and I invest, my family was putting all of that on me. So there's a lot of things I missed out on because I just didn't understand it. I didn't know. So for a long time, I didn't start investing until probably about my 6th or 7th year because I didn't even know what a dividend was, a yield. So I had to start educating myself. And so my 5th or 6th year, I had a technology-free training camp. And so I just had a whole bunch of books. And the whole bunch of books, for me at that time, man, there were 3 books. And there was one book, The Richest Man in Babylon, Davison Principle, and Remembering the Vine. And I read those 3 books. And those books, I read them several times because the first go-arounds, it was Spanish. It was foreign to me. And so as I started learning that, I started investing. But then I also figured out investing, I love ownership. And I have to own it. And so everything I did is if I couldn't own it, meaning the land, because I grew up in LA. I never been around, I love Charlotte because I get to grow with a city. So I started investing in land, in property. And so quietly, I just built up a little small portfolio, and then COVID hit. And because I did a lot of my business was based on how I grew up, I bought a lot of my buildings. I had 32 buildings, and every single one of them was Section 8 because I grew up on Section 8 and I knew how the system worked. And because I was Steve Smith, I can walk into Section 8, go through the back door, and they get to tell me out of the 10,000 people, which 3,000 actually could afford to pay the rent. And so I went, did that, and I had a mentor, and all of a sudden, I'm still a landlord of a Starbucks, a corporate Starbucks. I don't do anything. They just send me checks.
That's a good business.
Passive income, good thing.
So for me, I did not do a lot of things, but I learned. And the thing that I feel comfortable and confident in is dirt. I don't know how to deal with people necessarily. I'm not great at it. I'm improving, but I'm not great at it. And so I deal with dirt and deal with that. And everything else, I don't touch because I don't understand it. Smart. And I'm not willing to tell my 27-year-old son, my 23-year-old daughter, my 19-year-old son, or my 10-year-old daughter, my son, or my mom who depends on me, or my dad, that, hey, sorry, we don't have any more money because I decided to invest in Johnny, who said, I'm gonna make you a whole bunch of money. I already got a whole bunch of money. I just want to be able to make sure when I'm 50 or 60, I can just play golf and not worry about it.
Smart.
Now, Mark and I were talking about golf, and I love golf.
Me too.
It is my favorite sport. I think it's the ultimate metaphor for life. And even just 18 holes, you know, you wish you could, you know, I guess you want to shoot lower. So maybe it doesn't work that analogy.
Well, here's what you should do. You should.
Because I'm like,
You should come on my podcast that I own, and we can go play golf.
okay, we can do that. I was thinking about it. I was like, man, is that an analogy? Because I usually play like an 85, but the goal is to be less,
Yeah.
right? But you want to live long, so
Yeah.
it doesn't really line
I want
up.
to play a lot of golf.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna play golf. We can play at Quail Hollow.
Oh, I know. I can get there.
Okay, let's play there.
Pinehurst is better, though.
Well, I'll play with you there too. Okay. Mark, we were talking about golf, and I know how much you love golf. Golf is golf may not be his favorite. He's a big skier, but you also are a big investor. And when you think about the world of investing, what role do you think, and maybe it's evolved and changed over the better part of time, what role do you think, or what responsibility or relationship value or opportunity you think investment firms can have with players, both current and former players, in helping them making decisions on investments, or maybe working together for, you know, mutual benefit?
I mean, I'm not actually sure why it's been kind of broken into two halves, like the players who play football and want to be in the business world, or the players play football and don't. Because the reality is, in my opinion, investing is one of 50 things you guys can do when you're done playing. Real estate, healthcare companies, I can answer the question, but I just think in a way it's been oversimplified, because you're talking about a group of individuals who are, for the most part, in their 20s and early 30s, who've made more money than most other 20 or 30-year-olds. And I always, when I speak to teams, I always say, how many of you think of football as your kind of first career? And very few hands, if any hands, ever go up. And I think, boy, if you're going to retire at 30 or 35 years old and you've got $1 million in the bank, you've got $50 million in the bank, you can do anything. And I think the best advice you can give, the best advisory firms out there, are ones who are not pushing investing on individuals if they're not interested in investing. Investing is a vertical among hundreds of verticals. You want to be doctors, you want to be lawyers, you want to be artists, you want to be in the media. So I think a advisory firm, and again, I'm speaking obviously with my own self-interest here, but that's built for players, has to really understand who they're talking to and what their role is. And for us, you know, we don't take a fee in anything that is not connected to success, number one. So there's no model that I believe in where alignment in an advisory business isn't critical. So if I recommend an investment to somebody, I'm putting my own money in, first and foremost, done. And I think the goal is to create opportunities and to open up possibilities. So we always say, I said this to Tony on the way in, our goal we have about 250 athletes that invest with us. We don't want every athlete to invest in every deal. In fact, we don't take commitments from athletes on deals until they've seen the deals. So the goal here is to have every athlete have a point of view on every deal, not invest in every deal. And if they're not interested in what we do, they should not spend 5 minutes on it. So some of you will want to be in the business world and investing, but it's not a must. Mm-hmm. If you said to me, I've made $20 million or $6 million or $30 million, and I have no interest in investing, I just want to go watch my money grow 4 or 5% a year and enjoy my life, or I want to go and travel the world, that's great. So I don't think it's preconception that athletes have to be suddenly investors is logical. And I do worry about a lot of these young kids now who are coming out of college with a little bit of money thinking, I've got to be an investor. It's not for everybody.
No. Yeah, I think that's a good point, because everyone's wired different. I mean, Steve talked about it. I mean, Steve's done it his way, what he knows, what he's comfortable with, and has goals. I like working. I like getting into the operations side and the growth side and the strategy of how you grow a business. But everyone's wired a little bit different. And I viewed football as my first career. I had 5 kids and got hurt and, weren't getting paid what we get paid now. But I was like, I'm going to go to work. I got to do something. I'm 31 years old. I want to live a long time, and I just think being productive for me is good. Wow. Me sitting around is not good. It's just not good for my wife. It's not good for anybody in the house if I'm there all day. And I've done that, and it's just not good. And so I like getting out there and getting my hands dirty and learning and because I have that curiosity and I enjoy that. But everyone's wired a little bit different. So you have to understand what interests you first and foremost. What gets you going? Because that's the hard thing with football, because that's what got us going our whole lives. I mean, since I was this little, all I wanted to do is play football.
And you've been so successful at it, you know, it to me does telegraph that you could be successful at something else, but it's going to require the same amount of time, same amount of work, and the same kind of odds you're going to have to.
And that's where I was going with it. The same thing that made all of us get to the professional level, which is hard. We know that. But the same discipline, work ethic, perseverance, overcoming adversity, all those traits, that's what every business leader's looking for. Now, so if you want to go into business, you have a leg up because it's the DNA is in you. But you got to find out, what do you want to do? And that's key. And I see, and I was guilty of it. You just invest because it sounds like a good deal. Oh, I'm going to get rich, and I'm going to get richer, and I'm going to go buy that or whatever. That's the wrong approach. Just slow down, got money, invest it wisely, but then go figure out what you want to do, because life's more about than just having money. I know a lot of rich people that are miserable and have bad marriages, bad kids, bad relationships, and all that stuff. So figure out how you're wired and what you want to do. And if it's in business, if it's in being a lawyer, being an agent, being a landlord like Steve, creating your own business like Sheldon, those are all possibilities. But step back and how are you wired? What makes you go? Because you got to find something to get you up out of bed every morning after you get done playing football.
Invest in yourself.
That's right. Develop yourself. That's the first thing. I love what Steve said. He wasn't ready. He knew who he was. And you got to, I'm big on self-improvement, self-development. Like, you should never stop learning. Never stop, whatever it is. And I think that's a critical thing I think all of us need.
I think learning will be the through line throughout our talk, not only right now, but the next talk, and for all of you to sort of always just be reminded of. And as we kind of come to the close on our discussion, one last question. You had books, but at the same time, you were a loner. You're playing now, and you're in the locker room. I'm sure you're talking to a bunch of people. But we all have made decisions about the things and the places that we want to go. What about people? We talked about networks as our net worth, but sometimes there's that one person that brings the energy, that helps us no matter what occurs. Who's that person to each one of you, and in what way did they affect you? Just give people a little slice of mentorship and how that person helped you along the way. Mark?
For me, it's my wife, because she always says, we've been together since we were, kids, basically, and makes me a better person, holds a mirror up to me, which, by the way, looking in a mirror is important. Seeing who you really are, and so for me, it's her.
I mean, my wife, I've been married almost 30 years now, so that's important. But I view it a little bit different from the standpoint, I look at my life, I've had great coaches. I don't think anyone gets anywhere by themselves. I think that's a ridiculous thought. And so I've had great coaches at different stages for really what I needed. Sometimes I didn't even know I needed it. The wife is the consistent, but I have business mentors. I have a handful, really one or two right now that I trust with my life, because I know they have my best interest in me. So when I have a big decision, I just had a big decision I just made last week. So I had 2 or 3 trusted advisors I go to, laid it out on the table, and made sure I'm thinking about it right. So I think you got to have somebody in your life that you trust that, again, like I said, it's further down the road that's gone through this thing that can help you navigate so you can have success.
Sheldon?
I would say my mom. She was my why early on, kind of gave me my drive and showed me how to work hard, things like that. I'm the youngest of 9, so really showed me, like, all right, this is how you kick it into gear, this is how you provide for your family, this is how you do all these things and how you hold a household down. So it's probably my mom, and then probably my high school coach. He really showed me how to be disciplined within your craft and make sure that when you put your all into something, you get the rewards as long as you commit to it.
Steve?
For me, it has to be, you check all the boxes everyone said. And I don't want to repeat it, but it's like, your wife, your kids, your why, and all that stuff. But I think the most important part that's really influences is really not saying myself in regards to, like, I'm great, but actually all these people that you say are your why, are you capable of asking them what are the things that you need to improve on about yourself that makes you more trustworthy to them?
Self-awareness. Having that self-awareness, humility to ask.
I know a lot of people are taking notes, so I want you to tell them those 3 books one more time.
Richest Man in Babylon, Remembering the Vine, and I think it's the Davis Principle. Davis Principle sucks. It's a long book. Yeah.
Give the gentleman a round of applause, please.